This is the essence of science. You ask an impertinent question, and you're on your way to a pertinent answer.
What makes this case any more credible than the 100-year-old mother with the lizard baby?
Because the lizard baby wasn't born anywhere near Lake Okoboji.
Oka what?
Boji. Okoboji.
Hello, and welcome to Discovering the X-Files, the podcast in which a newbie, that's me, takes a deep dive into the entirety of Chris Carter's creepy universe, as longtime fans escort me on the journey, a journey filled with paranoid conspiracies and monsters of the week. I'm Erix Antoine, and today Daniel and I will be discussing the episode Conduit, which originally aired in the US on October 1st, 1993. It was written by Howard Gordon and Alex Ganza, and directed by Daniel Sackheim. In this episode, Mulder and Scully investigate the alleged alien abduction of a teenage girl. Her kid brother somehow is able to receive satellite transmissions, a fact that alarms the NSA, and the mother of the family may also have had her own UFO encounter over 20 years earlier. Meanwhile, Mulder finds himself becoming emotionally attached to the case because of its similarities to his own childhood trauma when his younger sister Samantha was abducted from their home. The episode is not directly tied to the alien conspiracy mythology, but it does delve into Fox Mulder's backstory involving the abduction of his younger sister Samantha, a plot thread that will be a very important element of the series going forward. After the break, Daniel and I are going to get into it, so stick around.
You know, when I was a kid, I had this ritual. I'd close my eyes before I walked into my room, because I thought that one day when I opened them, my sister would be there, just lying in bed, like nothing ever happened. You know, I'm still walking into that room every day of my life.
Yeah, so Conduit, a mythology episode that is not exactly a mythology episode, right? Like that's the thing here. Essentially, it is. It's a mythology episode because it's ultimately about, although the storyline doesn't revolve around it, it is essentially, it's very much about Mulder, right?
Yeah.
It's very much about. It's got a storyline, but it's very linked to him. It's very linked to his character. It's developing that, and I think that I guess it should be considered a mythology episode. And I would imagine that most fans do consider it a mythology episode, even though it's just tangentially related.
Yeah, you don't really have the conspiratorial aspects of it here. There's no cigarette smoking man. Deep Throat's not popping up to give advice.
You don't have the conspiratorial, but you do have like the agents coming in and fucking
The
shit up.
NSA, yeah. Well, of course, the kid gets signals from the TV that gives him
Yeah.
detailed classified information that he's not supposed to have, along with a bunch of random other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they really do a number on that kid's room. I'll tell you that. I'm just watching
That poor piggy bank.
That's an interesting thing about that because okay, so we can sort of go in chronological order with the episode. It starts very much like, and again, much like in the first episode and everything else, this has to be deliberate. This is not a coincidence. But it starts very much with a close encounters kind of thing. You know, you got like the house is shaking and like the kids at the door. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's obviously making an allusion to that, right? And the one thing that I don't know that they touch upon this, and maybe it's just me reading into it because of my own experience, like later on, the way that other works handle this, but it's almost like the implication is that the kid's autistic.
I don't think he's supposed to be, but it comes off that way. I think what might hurt it on that level is that we don't really get any interaction with him before he is touched by the UFO.
Yeah, from the moment we see him, that's the thing. And then I guess you're right. It's not so much that he is autistic, but that his contact, right, his encounter, as it were, has somehow activated something in him that he can now receive these transmissions. But what we then come to understand is these binary codes that he's getting. And, we're never quite sure what the process is, but we can understand that he basically hears it, like it's coming through the static of the TV. And so like that's another Spielbergian thing right there. You got the static on the TV, the kid pointing at it, it's coming from there. It's like Poltergeist or whatever. It's like you go like, what's coming? But yeah, so you have the TV, he's pointing at the TV, and so I guess the understanding is that he hears it. I guess it's on a frequency that he can hear, or that's because it's been past them. So I guess what he's hearing 110, 1110, and he's like just like cop. I mean, yeah, I don't like it isn't entirely clear, and that's why you get the sense that he's autistic. It's like he perceives something on a level that that a neurotypical person does not.
Well, and then of course you and I are both action fans, so you've got the kid figuring out a random code that he's not supposed to. This time it's coming from aliens, but you still have the NSA showing up. You got a little bit of a Mercury Rising thing going on there.
Yeah.
And then
Mercury Rising comes after this episode. It's like a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years after this episode aired. So it is sort of like, this is very much, I mean, I definitely was thinking about that. And I think it's even the same shit. I mean, I think it's the same. Aren't the villains in Mercury Rising
it's the NSA.
It's the NSA, right? Alec Baldwin is like an NSA asshole, and do they want to have the kid killed because, he cracked the code in a cereal box, right? That's what that was, if I remember correctly.
It was either a cereal box or some sort of like word search crossword puzzle, random puzzle book.
Yeah, it was something weird like that. Something like they put it there to test if it could be cracked, under the with the understanding that it couldn't be, and this kid cracks it, and that's the end of it. But yeah, it was also the NSA. So, but here's the thing: as you're watching the episode, you would think, okay, so he's getting transmissions from the UFO, but no, he's getting transmissions from an NSA satellite or something.
Yeah, or satellites in general.
Right, just satellites in general, and which the NSA is aware of, and so they obviously they're concerned, because this is not something, it's a matter of national security. It's not something that just the civilian should have access to. So, but yeah, this is intriguing because it brings back, we hear a little bit about the backstory involving Mulder. They mention it in the pilot, don't they? Like, in passing, like
that's what he brings up vaguely to Scully in the hotel room after she has him check the marks on her back.
Right.
About his sister disappearing.
Right. So they're not introducing it here, but they're sort of fleshing it out a bit more and giving it. And so there's one thing that I kind of noticed, and I don't know if this is just, I mean, I don't know where to put the blame here, but I did get the sense that Duchovny in this episode was a bit wooden. It was a little surprising to me because, in previous episodes he had not been. And then here, in an episode that is very focused on him and demands a certain level of emotional commitment, he comes off as a little bit wooden. And I think, like, I don't know if I'm going to blame Duchovny for that necessarily. It could be that at the time that this was done, it was a little beyond his range. Maybe at that moment he was still trying to figure out the character. It could also be the director just wasn't getting him to the place that he needed to get to bring those things. Because at the end, when he breaks down, that's fine. But in most of the episode, there's a certain, because I get the sense that this should be a little more dramatic, a little more like he's almost Ahab-esque. He's like an Ahab figure where he's like obsessively wanting to solve this. To the detriment of the investigation, even, because like when they're in the woods and then he's like digging through the rocks, Scully's like, listen, you're fucking up a crime scene. But the idea is that no, he doesn't care. He needs to know. He needs to have the answers.
He's really emotional in some scenes, and others he feels incredibly distant. And I wonder if, from an acting perspective, it was a decision either made by him or the director or jointly to where he would try to balance out the more emotional bits by being a little more, I guess, quiet and wooden in others, and maybe overcorrected a little too far. So yeah,
Yeah.
he comes in certain scenes he's completely engaged, and others he comes off really flat.
Yeah. And it was a little disconcerting because I got like
Yeah.
that. It took me out because I had, the first 3 episodes, you kind of get a different level of engagement. He's more engaged, and
Yeah.
so here in this particular one, where it's such a crucial element of his character development, you would imagine he would have to be more engaged. It could be a lot of things. It could also be, again, that this maybe was produced in a different order.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe this was the second episode that was even shot, and so they were just like, he wasn't quite there with the character, hadn't quite figured it out. I mean, I wouldn't know, but I could imagine that. And it's also his own development as an actor, because at this point he was still a relatively fresh actor. It's not like he'd done tons of stuff.
Yeah.
He'd done Twin Peaks, and I don't know what else. I don't even know if he'd done that movie California. I think he hadn't done that yet. But
I don't think so. But he may have done his little smarmy rich jackass parts in is it the first Beethoven movie?
That's right. Yeah, he's
And,
the bad guy. Yes.
doesn't he also show up in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead? Like he had a lot of little bit parts and stuff.
And always playing like jack-offs, like always playing like these
usually.
like assholes. Yeah, like heel characters. Like in Beethoven, he's basically it's him, and I don't remember because it's him and a woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? That they're like the villains, and I always get them confused because of with Christmas Vacation.
The couple next door.
Yeah, I'm always like, is that Duchovny? And right now I'm even wondering. Like, I would have to look it up to see if the bad guy in if the couple next door is Duchovny and somebody else. It wouldn't surprise me if it is in fact Duchovny. And isn't it like Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
I think she's the wife in that couple. Yeah.
Yeah, he would have easily fit into the role. So he was doing stuff like that, and then finally he gets a lead, in a series, and every actor's got their range, and every actor has their moment of development, and especially in a series, obviously you're crafting a character, and I would imagine that eventually the character will grow, but also Duchovny will grow as an actor. So that's why, like, it's not a deal breaker, but it was distracting. It was like, it's kind of wooden. This could be more. This could be more impactful, more emotional, more dramatic than it's playing off right now. And you get the sense that you want it to be there, like especially the moments that he's getting very obsessive. It's like it's not quite where it needs to be. It's kind of like, like a half measure kind of thing.
Yeah, it just falls a few steps too short.
But I mean, the plot line itself is I like the way it's handled. What's the actress's name? Plays the mother. Looked it up. Carrie Snodgrass, whatever. I like her. I think she's really good. She's got that gravitas to her, like the character, as we understand it, she was a Girl Scout and was involved in a UFO thing. So she's basically the town kook, and you get that, like that. I like that scene when she's when she's being interviewed. And that thing she says to Scully is something like, over the years, I've seen that look in people's faces, like that look that you're giving me right now. Like, she's like familiar with that because she's tried to share her experiences with people, but everybody just looks at her like she's a nut. So
nobody wants to hear it.
Right. It's like they're done with it. And so that's that. And then at the bar, here's the thing. I wasn't sure. Is the bartender Donald Gibb?
Yes.
All right, because I was like, is that Ogre? Is that the bartender? I guess they're Hell's Angels too, or there's some kind of like a Harley riding UFO club that goes up. Because he's like you should go riding with us sometime, man. And then, and I'm going like, whoa, this is what they do,
I kind of wish he had gone riding with them.
Yeah, that would have been cool. That would have been a cool scene. It would have been like the. But there's one thing that. Maybe this is just me my brain farting and not picking up on it. But right, I mean, the her boyfriend, Ruby's boyfriend, was one of them, right? Is that it?
That's the impression that's
Right.
given, but they never outright say that. All we specifically know is that he worked at the bar. It's never
Okay.
really clear if he was a biker, but the assumption is there because like pretty much it looks like most of them were bikers.
Right. And by the end of it, I mean, what the mother decides to do, she's like, what I'm going to say is that she was on the back of a Harley Davidson, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
She knows it's not true, but she's decided that that's the story that she's going to tell because she doesn't want to put up with the looks anymore. She's over it.
Yeah.
You know,
She
got to.
doesn't want her daughter to grow up that way either.
It's scenes like that really that are very compelling because you have Mulder basically saying, but that's the truth. That's what happened. So you're saying you're just gonna and he's trying. You really see there that level from the character point of view, even if the company doesn't quite sell it. From the point of view of the character growth, it's the idea that he really empathizes with these people because he believes the story. He believes that that's true. And so for him, it's very important that it has to be true. And so he just doesn't. He's I mean, maybe disgusted is not the word, but it upsets him that they're going to deliberately lie when that is the truth and it should be told from his perspective.
Yeah. What I found really interesting about that is she tries to set him up, basically say that he wants her to do it or that the world deserves to know, but instead he pivots and he's worried about how Ruby's going to grow up feeling and about how
Right.
she'll feel about being able to talk to her or not, and how her little brother is going to deal with the situation emotionally and psychologically as he gets older. He's worried about their he's more worried about their repression and them feeling unable to talk about it than he is about the world knowing the truth, at least in this instance, which I thought was
Right.
really nice.
Yeah. I mean, because he sees himself in little boy's name. What is it, Kevin?
Kevin, yep.
Yeah. He sees himself in that little boy. That's how I took it, right? And
Yeah.
so he figures because this little boy, I mean, basically, and it's the story, this little boy is having his experience. His sister was taken. The only difference is the little boy got her back, but it's this trauma. He sees himself there. This little boy is still traumatized by this experience. His sister was taken. He saw something. He saw something that we don't see, and we can presume that he saw the UFO or whatever it is. And so that's there. And plus, he achieved some level of connection where he was receiving these transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, this is something that this little boy's going to carry with him for the rest of his life, much like Mulder has carried this experience of his sister's presumed abduction for all his life. So we definitely see that. We definitely see that that connection, and that's obviously the point of the episode. And again, it's one of those situations where we're not getting any answers. We're just getting the questions. We're getting very vague, not necessarily satisfactory answers. We don't know for a fact. Obviously, we can assume, given the nature of the show, but we don't know for a fact that Ruby was abducted. But we assume that probably she was.
Yeah.
But we don't actually get an answer. Like, why was she abducted? Why was she returned? Why was this kid getting those transmissions? And then the transmit, like, that's a nice scene when they lay out all the papers with the binary stuff written out, and then they go up on the to look down on the ground. They go up the stairs, they look down into the living room, they see them all laid out, and it's Ruby's face.
Yeah.
And that's a nice little goosebump kind of thing. It's the sort of thing where, like, it's a cool thing. I don't know to what degree it matters. Like, I don't know what the point is, but it's a nice moment. It shows that sometimes you don't necessarily have to give answers. You don't necessarily have to satisfy that. But if you can fill your story with little moments, because that's ultimately what that is. I mean, it doesn't really mean anything because, okay, what does it mean? It's her face. so like what,
Right.
I don't like why, right? Like because it's not like that leads them to her or anything,
Right.
right? It doesn't.
No.
It's just like, oh look, it's her face, and then you're just like, okay, that's creepy, but so it's still, but in that moment, it's got that nice little goosebump thing with, ooh, it's her face, that aha, even though it leads nowhere, like that's the thing. It
Yeah.
works even though it leads nowhere.
It's one of those things where it's a great little moment, especially with Scully's reaction to it. But then after you pass it, you immediately have about 1,000 more questions. Did they
Right.
intentionally send the picture? Are they taunting the kid? Are they taunting the mother? Are they taunting Mulder and Scully? Did the kid decide to make the image himself out of all those? Did he do it consciously? Did he do it subconsciously?
Right.
But in the end, it doesn't really matter because it's not an episode that's interested in answering a million questions anyway. So it's all right for it to just throw out some weird thing and then move on.
Right. I mean, it's all about. There's a lot of symbolism. Some of it's a bit heavy-handed. I mean, the episode ends with Mulder crying in a church. What he's keeping the faith. I'm just going like, laying it out a bit thick there, like Alex Ganza and Howard Gordon writers. It's good. It's a little bit like, ended on a church. It's a great image. It's a cool way to end the episode. It sort of gives it power. It sort of compensates for the lack of forceful emotion throughout the episode, where at the end you kind of have this very eloquent moment of Mulder sitting in a church crying, understanding that he's still not getting what he needs to get from it. He's still not getting any answers.
Apparently, that bit, and maybe even the bit with Scully right before it, was added in a late reshoot because they wanted to, I guess, have it pack a little bit more of a punch at the end. And you're right. He is only in a church for the symbolism and for the audience, because Mulder himself is not a religious person. He would more than likely just be sitting in his apartment looking at her picture and crying instead of in a church. But they clearly just did it for the big moment, no matter if it particularly mattered for the character. But that's okay. I mean,
yeah. I mean, from what I can see, Mulder is either an agnostic or a flat out atheist.
Yeah.
Like the character as he has been established. So yes, like him in a church, just like, why would he go there? If he were a Catholic and we had established him as a devout Catholic, then be like, all right, well, that makes sense. He goes to church to find peace, to find solace, maybe talk to his priest, whatever. But like, that's not what's happening. So, it is, you're absolutely right. It's all about the imagery. Like all the stuff's a bit on the nose, it works, but it's fine. I mean, like you have the big scene where Scully confronts him, and it spells it out. It's like, you're not going to find your sister, just in case we didn't get the theme, just in case we didn't understand that, yes, for him, this is the search for his sister. It's, it's been reignited. Just in case we didn't get that, let's have Scully just yell it at him. And that's a cool moment. That's probably the best acted scene in the episode, at least for them.
Yeah.
That exchange, when he turns around, what he says to her, he's like, you can come with me or not, like whatever, but like
either way, I'm going.
Right. It's like, I'm doing this. Like,
yeah, that's a good illustration once again of their chemistry, because if they weren't that good separately and together, that scene would come off just as heavy-handed as it's written. But it works solely because of their chemistry.
Yes.
Solely, yeah.
So yeah, Duchovny's a bit wooden, but Gillian Anderson is not. She's great. I really like, at this point, I enjoy this character, even though last week we had her with an incredible experience that she had, but she's right back to, nope. I still don't believe in no. Even though a guy came out of my my air conditioning grate and attacked me, I'm not gonna say, yeah, it's possible. Like, I'm not even gonna entertain the possibility that I could be wrong, and that maybe this is a UFO thing. No, I'm still going to be the hardline skeptic. And my point is that should be ridiculous, but she still sells it. She's still convincing in her character. I like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's the Indiana Jones thing. You get to the third movie and he's battled a mystical, dark, supernatural cult in India. He's seen the literal Ark of the Covenant
Yeah.
annihilate an entire squadron of Nazis. But that Holy Grail, that's just a bunch of hooey. It doesn't exist.
Like that they can pull that off in a series. And that's the thing. I know that she's still going to be a skeptic several seasons into this. I know that, even though, I haven't gotten there yet, but I know that. And I know that is potentially problematic because it's like at some point you go like, look, you've been through about 6 adventures at this point where you've seen incredible things and you're still a skeptic. Jesus. But it's okay. Right now we're still in the early stages, so it's fine. Yeah. But at this point it is like, all right, okay, maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe she found some way to justify how the guy came out of the air conditioning grate. But at some point, when is it going to be enough? When are you going to be like, all right. But it's fine.
Right.
It works for the story. When you look at it as an individual story, it's fine. It's only when you start looking at it as a piece of a whole where it's sort of like this piece is shaky. But as is, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. And we're only 4 episodes in, so
right.
You can just assume that they're still growing. They're still developing these characters.
One other thing I really love about this episode is, of course, it's revealed that Samantha Mulder does have an X-file on file, and Fox himself is the one who opened it. Not surprising at all. Of course he would do that. But what I really love is the addition of the fact that he includes his own hypnotherapy tapes in her file as part of the evidence, because of course he would. He would have no qualms whatsoever about opening himself up that much and including it in the file, because that's just who he is.
Right. Well, it's evidence. It's his testimony.
Yeah.
It's extremely important. And it relates to the ending of the episode where he's basically, saying this is important. This is true. This is a truthful testimony. And he believes that Ruby should be able to express her truth and her experience and not be shunned or told to keep it a secret by her mother or anyone. But the one thing about that, though, so it's his hypnotherapy, and we can assume that it is recent, right? Like this is hypnotherapy that he's been doing in recent years.
Yeah, probably since he joined the X-Files, or reopened, I guess.
Yeah, so because that was the thing you said, he includes his hypnotherapy in the file. So I'm guessing because he opens that file to investigate his sister's disappearance, but did he at that point get the hypnotherapy to as part of his investigation? He figured, I should regress. I should regress and try to remember as much as I can from this experience and use that as evidence.
That would be a very Mulder thing to do.
Yeah. That's the way the episode ends, isn't it? Like well, not right at the end, but you hear him saying that tape, right? I want to believe.
Yeah. And he's talking about what he was a little kid, and constantly when he would approach his bedroom, he would close his eyes and walk in and open them and hope that she would be sitting on the bed again, or sleeping in the bed again, is what he said.
Right. It's I want to believe, and we hear that as we see him sitting in a church, reflecting on the fact that he wants to believe.
Even though he means in aliens and his sister returning, not in Jesus.
Not in Jesus or God or any of that stuff. And so that's why it is heavy-handed, but as we said, it works. And the episode in general works. Again, no answers, but it doesn't really matter. We have an understanding that this is just a piece of a larger puzzle. It's just throwing things in there. It gives us a little story about the abduction. It resolves that. The Ruby is returned. I love that shot. It's a really cinematic shot in the woods. When the kid's out in the woods, Kevin's out in the woods.
Oh, yeah.
that glow, that orange glow that comes through the trees, and just like that's a great shot. Very close encounters, very fire in the sky, very like, but it has that sort of epic feel to it. It's not entirely clear. The bikers go to Lake, what was it? Lake
Okeechobee or
Lake Ooga Booga or whatever it is, like that.
yeah.
Lake. And this was shot in British Columbia, where whatever that doesn't even exist. So they just go riding there just to ride around. Like that's never entirely clear to me. Like when ogres like, you got to come ride, you got to come riding with me sometime or whatever. What do they do exactly? They just like ride around the lake, go around in circles, waiting for the UFO to show up. And so like, I don't, and they just happen to be there that, they come that, but that is a great shot, first the orange glow, and then you see the bikes just sort of cut through the fog. And it's very dramatic, and that's a great scene. I don't have much else to say about this. I don't know, like, is there anything that maybe we could bring up that I'm missing, or that maybe you have?
Not that I can really think of. I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah, it's mythology tangential, I guess is the word. Not quite a Monster of the Week episode, not quite a mythology episode. It has its place. It's not one of the best episodes of the season, but still worth seeing.
Obviously, it's important in terms of the development of the characters. It's obviously important in establishing or deepening Mulder's obsession, giving us a little bit more of a backstory to it. I agree. It's clearly not. I mean, it's of the first 4 episodes, it's probably my least favorite, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's fine. It does what it needs to do, I think, in furthering the story. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's fine. It works.
I agree.
And I think our next episode is the Jersey Devil, which I'm curious to see that, because that's already them digging into real life mythology. Yeah, it's a real legend, and they're doing it like right away, like right off the bat. And I think that's interesting that they don't waste any time, and starting to bring in real things. I imagine they're going to keep doing that. It's not like a one-time thing. It's like they might as well dig into real stuff, because that just makes for more intriguing storytelling. So I'll be looking forward to that one. We'll do that one in a couple of days, and it'll be fun.
Sounds good to me.
Can you see your sister?
No. But I can hear her.
What is she saying?
She's calling out my name over and over again. She's crying out for help, but I can't help her. I can't move.
Are you scared?
I know I should be, but I'm not.
Do you know why?
Because of the voice.
The voice?
The voice in my head.
What's it telling you?
Not to be afraid. It's telling me that no harm will come to her, and that one day she'll return.
Do you believe the voice?
I want to believe.
And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. And if you did, please subscribe to the podcast, give us a like, take a minute to write a positive review, and go ahead and spread the word on social media. The podcast is available on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms. Look for the Erix Antoine Network on Facebook or on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at ErixAntoineNet, and check out my reviews on Letterboxd. There's quite a few, and there will be more. You should also check out Daniel Baldwin's website, theschlocketeer.com, and follow him on Twitter at Daniel W. Baldwin. I'm Erix Antoine, and I'll be back in a few days, along with Daniel, to talk about the Jersey Devil. Neither of us are from New Jersey, so we don't really know much about that myth. Maybe this episode can enlighten us, or maybe it's all just a bunch of nonsense. We'll see. In any case, I hope you'll join us. So until then, let's all remember that the truth is out there. See you next time.